Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. Today and all week we've had the opportunity to talk aerospace in Colorado. It is actually quite a large industry in Colorado. We are number one per capita in the nation for aerospace industries and number two in the nation otherwise because California, they're a little bit bigger, but we're making our way there. So I am excited to have on the phone with me Tom Zelibor. He is the CEO of Space Foundation. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
Yes, we're very excited to have you on today. We know that you have been the CEO over at Space Foundation for about a year. But before you did that, you have quite an extensive military career. If you don't mind going into your background and talking about that for a little bit for me, I'd appreciate that, Tom.
Sure. I started out with about 30 years in the Navy, and in particular in the aviation business for the Navy. And once I got a little more senior, I needed to find an opportunity to do something outside of the aviation business, and I became involved in space and information technology, information warfare, and actually at one point in my time with the Navy was the CIO for the Navy. So it was, kind of a varied background there after my aviation side, but it's what got me really going and being passionate about space. After I retired, I did a small stint with the Navy in up in Newport, Rhode Island, where they had asked me to come back as a senior civilian to stand up a new college for them there in Newport. And it was something I really enjoyed and I was passionate about, and it was leadership development. So we stood up a college of operational and strategic leadership where we dealt with character development, ethics, and leadership, all things that I was, very excited to help the Navy establish. Through that, I was then recruited to take over a private company in Colorado, up in Boulder, and that's how I got to Boulder, or excuse me, into Colorado. And I was the CEO of a company that did content management, and we also worked with the FAA on developing the next air traffic management system. Did that for several years, and then took over a second company that was a public company that was dealing with new technologies to improve the speed of data transfer and telecommunications that was actually based in Delaware, but I told them I'd take the job only if I could move it to Colorado because I love it here. And so did that for 5 years, and then was recruited to come to the Space Foundation, which I did last May, and been loving every minute of it. Got me back into the space community and getting an opportunity to promote awareness and programs in space because I feel it's so vitally important to our, not just our economy, but the future of our country and our education.
Well said, Tom. I agree. As you know, aerospace is huge in Colorado, and I think that's one of the things that nationwide people aren't very well aware of, and you guys are pretty integral in getting that word out for us.
And absolutely.
Yes. So if you don't mind giving us a little bit of background about Space Foundation itself. So we just had the 34th Annual Space Symposium this year. That was in April, correct?
That's correct. But the Space Foundation has actually been around 35 years. We were founded back in 1983 here in Colorado Springs, where there were a small group of the leaders in the Colorado Springs area that felt it was vitally important, especially with a lot of the military space that was headquartered here in Colorado Springs, to have a group that was looking at the future of space and really connecting the government agencies as well as military, along with the corporate side of the house, to address the critical issues dealing with space. So that's kind of how we, got our roots. And when you think back to, that 35 years ago, it was just a group of 4 or 5 people, with 3 community leaders that had this vision. To see what it's grown into today is pretty fascinating to me, because now we're an international organization that is having an impact, obviously across the entire world, and having a great impact here in the local community, business-wise.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about your international relationships.
So this is something that has grown over time, but the Space Foundation has worked very diligently with international partners to make sure that the entire space community is connected in one way or another. And it really has grown through a lot of the efforts for the Space Symposium that's held every spring at the Broadmoor. And this has gone from just a few countries participating to now the most recent event we had in April. We had over 40 different countries represented. And I think this is vitally important for people to understand, since if you have 40 countries, everyone with their own agendas and their own idea of what their space, mission would look like, I think it's critical that we get them together in a forum where everybody can discuss the issues and make sure that we're deconflicting the activities in space, and to make sure each nation meets their national objectives.
That's awesome. So one of my favorite things that you said in there was 40 countries were represented at this 34th. Was that record breaking for you?
Yes, it gets bigger each year, and I don't, I don't have, I've only been here a year, so I don't know the exact time when international companies and militaries started showing up at the Space Symposium. But I can tell you that the growth over the last several years has just been, phenomenal. Uh, and when you go to an event and you see people from Japan, China, Russia, a lot of the South American countries, United Arab Emirates. I mean, it's the entire world has a real interest in space, and for us to be I'll call it the neutral, honest broker, to be able to bring all those different communities together it's a real honor for the Space Foundation to be involved in that.
Neutral, honest broker. I really like that term. Do you mind expanding on that a little bit for me?
Well, we are by design apolitical. We try to stay out of those discussions. But what we do is find the competing ideas, or the different thoughts that are out there. For you name a topic, it really doesn't matter. Because everyone has a different viewpoint. And what we do is in a neutral way, bring everybody together in forums or symposiums and of other events that we're involved in, to get everybody at the table to be able to express those differences in opinion, and then have a good, open, honest, and unemotional discussion about it. And that's what the fun part of this really is.
Right. It's people coming together with that same passion for space exploration, right?
Exactly. It's beyond exploration. It's about the use of space for individual country objectives. But the exploration of space is what gets people really excited, because as you probably are well aware of, with the rapidly growing commercial sector of space, people are now excited again about what's going on. I felt, this is just a personal opinion, I felt like over the previous couple decades, we started getting, I don't want to call it lazy, but it just wasn't as exciting, in the space industry. And now it's getting exciting again, and we're talking about going to Mars, and we're doing deep space exploration, and NASA has phenomenal programs that are going on. And so, people are getting fired up over it, and we're seeing it in our education programs here, and just, kids are really getting excited about the opportunities that space brings. And it just reminds me of when I was young and watching what was going on with during the Apollo era. I feel that same kind of excitement again.
I had Jay Lindell in studio earlier. He's the Aerospace and Defense Champion at Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which is a mouthful in
Right.
and of itself. But
Yep, I know Jay well.
oh, good. I figured you did. There's not a whole lot of people Jay doesn't know. We were talking about the fact that uh, kids are getting more revitalized about space, right? That is exciting stuff because when I was in school, um, well, Pluto was still a planet. We didn't have the debacle yet, but astronaut seemed like such a stretch for any type of job for myself, and I didn't consider any of the other careers, many, many, many other careers that are available that can still put you in the aerospace program. So I know that that's probably one of your favorite things. I think that you've got going on with Space Foundation is revitalizing education under the aerospace industry, right?
You're spot on. And when I first got here a year ago, we really looked at our strategic plan, and what was the real mission, and why do we exist? Why is space important? And then what are the pillars of our strategic plan? And then once you have those, then what are the priorities, and how do we go at it? Well, after several strategic offsites with our leadership team, education came out strong as the number one thing that we ought to be focused on. And we have a saying here that space today for a better tomorrow. And what we're doing is reinventing the education program here to inspire young minds, and creating a place and programs that are engaging to get the young people excited about learning, especially in the science, technology, engineering, and math side of the house. And with Colorado being, one of the largest space or aerospace economies in the country, I think it's critical, that we also, educate a future workforce, and develop these future STEM leaders. And going kind of back to what you just said, this doesn't mean that you have to put on a spacesuit and get into a capsule and go do deep exploration in space, or go to Mars, or whatever. There are so many different fields that relate to STEM that we just feel this obligation to try to really push this along, and there's a good reason for it. We've been doing an economic impact study and some other things here at the foundation, and during that, we found that by 2023, approximately 50% of all the U.S. jobs will be in STEM-related fields. That kind of blew me away. I didn't realize it, but what was more interesting, and actually almost disheartening, is that about 15% of the U.S. students are pursuing any kind of STEM major, and that's both in Colorado and nationwide. So you have to. So what we're trying to do is get people excited about STEM education, and we're using space as the hook because it's cool again.
It is cool again. Yes, you're right. So by 2023, 50% of jobs, 50%, are going to be within the STEM fields.
That's correct. And I think in order for us to be competitive, that we feel strongly that a lack of STEM exposure and education and a workforce will really hinder, future global competitiveness, and it's something that we ought to be focusing on.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. One of the things that the Colorado Business Roundtable does is we really focus on that workforce development side of things, right? And so it's exciting that the aerospace industry as a whole, you guys are really pumped to get some students into aerospace, right? Into the manufacturing fields for aerospace. There are tons of interrelated industries.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just aerospace. I mean, you can get there's many areas in the medical field that are required for the future in space. Just general, even manufacturing jobs, engineers, the scientists. You could go on and on. And so we've really, I guess if I gave you a one-liner, our goal is to broaden our education programs to influence the next generation workforce.
Want to broaden your education programs for the next generation of workforce. I love that. So, do you mind talking a little bit about, do you plan on incorporating any of these new education, um, I guess, tenets or caveats into the 35th Annual Space Symposium next April?
The Space Symposium is a little different about this. We use it as, you know, a unapologetic way to advertise for it. I'll say, but when the symposium is about getting the worldwide space community together to discuss all the issues that are related to space. But we do talk about space education, and we bring kids as well as our teacher liaisons, which are teachers all across the world that come actually to the symposium to also have a gathering to talk about the most pressing issues for them in the education community. But the other areas that we're expanding into, we were just announced several months ago. I was in Detroit with Secretary Carson, and the Space Foundation is now partnered with HUD, Housing, Urban, and Development, for a program that was started with HUD called their Envision Centers. And the Envision Centers are going to be in all 50 states, and we are a STEM education partner for HUD to be able to go to the underserviced communities and try to expose those communities to the benefits of getting an education in the science, technology, engineering, and math fields, so that it gives better job opportunities and even business opportunities for people that are more entrepreneurial minded. So we did that. We also started a new consultancy here, where this part of our business is to assist other entities, and those entities could be anything from other cities to other countries, in the development of STEM education centers. So what we're really trying to do is become an STEM education center of excellence for the world. And so we're no longer, this very, small, focused, on one area kind of organization. We're casting our net pretty wide now, and we're doing it because we think it's for the benefit of mankind, and in particular in the United States, our future workforce.
That is amazing. I love that. A STEM Education Center of Excellence for the world, not just locally, right? Not just for Colorado, not just for Colorado Springs, not just for the states, but for the world. That's quite a large goal to have there. Do you have any projections for me? And it's a lofty goal, but I have no doubt that you've got some of the best minds working on it with you guys.
Well, I would agree with that. And the reason I laughed is if you walked around here and you asked anybody, one of the things I'm always saying is, if you think big, you act big, you're going to be big. We're trying to get out of the mode of thinking small, acting small, and therefore we will be small. So we're going the other direction. And there was an article done several months ago. I think it was before the symposium, where I boldly stated that we're going to triple in size, and we're on a trajectory to do that. We've already since I've gotten here, we've probably hired another 10 people or so. We're on a path to do, easily, be in the 80 to 100 people. But it's not just the people; it's the programs and it's the revenue we bring in order to make these programs better and have a greater impact on the community.
Absolutely. What are your plans in place to be that forefronting center for STEM education?
So one is, as I said a little bit earlier, expanding our programs, and partnering with organizations that are trying to improve, in this area of not just STEM related things, but entrepreneurship. And so we plan on working very hard with several organizations and getting to entrepreneurship. We're now partnered with NASA iTech. iTech is a program that NASA has where they get in these promising technologies and try to get them to the in front of the big investors and the bigger companies, and they're all space related. And these, and iTech is really designed for development and discovery of the new technologies for the space industry. So along those lines, it gets to one of my visions, which has been to really promote entrepreneurship as it applies to space commerce. So we're really focusing on some non-traditional areas in businesses, and have been focused on minority-owned businesses in this thing. And so those are kind of the future plans. But to get there, it's the underpinning is all about education. So they're all linked together. So we have big plans and a big vision. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think we have the right team here and the right motivation where I have no doubt that we'll be successful.
I have no doubt that you'll be successful as well. Tom, we have about a minute and a half here. I want to ask you, what can we look for at the 35th Annual Space Symposium? Where can I sign up to do that?
Well, you can go to our website, and we'll be starting to post information shortly. We're already doing some of the, the traditional awards and announcements about those types of activities. But one of the things that's different this year, last year, obviously the vice president came, and so he kicked it off with a speech at the beginning of the 34th. That was something that we didn't think would ever happen. My staff has now forbidden me to be on any kind of letter writing campaign. So, they're worried about what I may ask for next. So, but we did find out in the 34th that General Goldfein, who is Chief of Staff of the Air Force, because he was so impressed with the event and the forum and the opportunity for discussing a wide range of programs and issues, that he's going to have what's called an Air Chief Conference. So the worldwide air chiefs are going to be participants at the next one, and here in Colorado Springs, so that you now have the counterparts of the Chief of Staff of the Air Force for for all the spacefaring countries are going to be here at the symposium. So that's, I think, I would say probably a big headliner for what's going on. And we just continue to look for ways to improve on what we've been doing for the last 34 years.
That is amazing, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me for Aerospace Week here on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Have a wonderful day.